Okay, so the next part of our assignment is to do the structural framing plan for the second floor. So we're going to go to the second floor. We are going to create the structural framing plan for just this slab, essentially, or the framing that holds up this slab, I should say. The first thing that we're going to do is all the beams are going to be at the underside of this slab. So the easiest way to set this up is to create a new level called top of steel. You'll find yourself making a lot of levels in your Revit models so that you can reference those to attach objects to make those parametric relationships. So we come to the south elevation and we are going to create a level without an associated view. So there's a couple ways to do that. We can go to level and turn off make plan view, or you can simply copy an existing level. I'm just going to do it this way. I'm going to uncheck make plan view because we do not want to create a view. We just want to create a level. And I'm going to place this level in here. It's just going to create level 7. Going to rename it. Here I'm going in my elevation view, I rename the actual level to T period O period S period level 2. So top of steel level 2. And that is going to be at the underside of our slab. So we could look at our drawings to figure that out, but if we didn't have our existing drawings to look at that I provided, one way is to go back to that wall section that we have cut. And now we have this level here. We could simply align to the bottom of this slab that level. And now it's at the proper height, 16 feet 8 3/8. So I'm going to go back to my south elevation. Because I don't really need, this is creating too many levels to look at, I can hide that. So right click, hide in view, elements. But I have that level that I can now build my steel to. Now I need to create a view for my structural plan. I could have created it at top of steel. However, the view settings would be underneath of the slab, and I actually want to see the top of the slab. So I want the view for my steel framing plan to be associated with level 2. So what I'm going to do is go to View, Plan Views. I'm going to create a new structural plan, and I'm going to base that on level 2. I'm going to hit OK. So that creates a new structural plan here at level 2. We can actually get rid of these others. This came in from our previous drawing, and this one was created when we created a second, or I should say a third level. So level 2, what we're going to do here in the project browser is rename this to second floor framing plan. We do not want to rename the level. We want the level to be remain with the name top of steel level 2. So we're going to say no. Or sorry, actually that would be level 2. It would rename if we did that. So the one thing that it doesn't do when you create the structural view, it places it in the structural plans, but it does not make the discipline structural. This is still an architectural view. If you come over here to the view settings or the view properties, we can see that the discipline here is still architectural. So if we change this to structural, what it does is it turns off anything that isn't structural. It doesn't turn everything that's not structural off, but it gives us a good head start. Now we can come in here and we can select the stair, right click, hide in view by category to turn off all stairs. Same thing with the railing. This thing is a generic model, so we're going to hide in view by element on that, and then the curtain walls we're going to hide in view by category. We do want these slabs because these are structural slabs, so we want to see this in the framing plan. However, we want to override the graphics so that we don't see the surface pattern. And now we're ready to start placing our structural steel framing. So to do that, we're going to look at the final deliverable, and we're going to figure out all the different sizes of wide flanges that we need for these beams, and we're going to write those down. Once we have those written down, we're going to, because it's just going to be easier to select from the list when we go to load these. So now I can go to Structure, Beam, and the only thing that's going to show up here is a 12 by 26. So I load family, and I use that list that I just created. I'm going to go, well here, let me go back to the beginning. You're going to come down to Structural Framing, Steel, Wide Flange, all the way down at the bottom. And now we can use our list and select all of the types that we need all at once. By holding the Control key, we can select multiple things at once. I'll come back once I have those loaded. Of course, all these types of beams are determined by doing the structural calculations, which we won't actually be doing in this class. And if you were drafting for a structural engineer, they would simply do that for you and tell you what to place where. So for our drawing, we're just mimicking the final deliverable. So we're going to start over here with this 24 by 55. So we go to our structural, beam, pull up the 24 by 55 type. Here is where we want to set our reference level. The reference level for steel beams is the top of the beam, which, as we noted, is the underside of our second floor slab, or at this point in time, our top of steel level 2 level. So we're going to choose that before we place any of these. The way that beams work is you simply click at the intersection of the grid lines to the next intersection. It will place a heavy line between those 2 points, and that's standard graphics for a framing plan. We represent the beams, the horizontal elements, with a single line. I'm going to go to my next column line, which receives a 16 by 26. So I'm going to change my type to 16 by 26. It automatically keeps my last reference level, and I'm going to place that beam. Now, there's 2 more 16 by 26s between these two. These two are dimensioned by the grid lines. However, our structural framing plan does not dimension these other two. It's assumed that when you have multiple beams between two that are dimensioned, that they're spaced evenly. So we are going to place these beams. These are also 16 by 26s. Since we're not on a grid line here, we're just going to select the horizontal grid line and draw these grid line to grid line. And again, I'm not worried about their exact placement. I'm just getting them in here. Now I can come and put a dimension string from this grid line to this beam, to this beam, to this beam. And when I place that, I can use the equal toggle, and it automatically spaces these equally. Now, I want them to remain equal, but I do not want to see this dimension, so I can delete it. I will get this warning. It says that I've deleted the dimension. Do you actually want to delete the dimension and unconstrain it, or do you simply want to delete the dimension? I keep the constraints there, so I hit OK, and if you select these, you'll see that the equal constraint is still there. So the dimension's gone, but if I move this beam, notice that the spacing always remains the same. The rest of the beams are pretty much exactly the same way. I'm going to place this 21 by 48 here. So beam, 21 by 48 type, column intersection to column intersection. And I place that one because now I can go to my section that we cut before. And I wasn't paying attention when I placed that one. Let me go back to the second floor framing plan. Well, that's interesting. Did I choose the wrong reference level? I apparently did. Well, this is a good learning opportunity. We can select all of these beams. And unfortunately, you cannot change the reference level here. What you have to do is you have to say Edit Work Plane. And we're going to specify a new work plane, and we're going to call that Top of Steel Level 2. Hit OK. Now when we go to that section, you can see that this beam is in location. I really thought I made sure that the top of steel level 2 was my reference plane, but apparently I did not. But again, that's a great learning experience there. You cannot simply move these. You have to change their work plane with the edit work plane to get them to a different height. It's one of the few times where the align tool does not work. Let's say I wanted to put this beam so that its top is at the top of concrete here. Align to this line, this top of beam, it simply doesn't move. The way that the structural elements work, you must have a level that you can use as its work plane. You can also draw work planes. We're not going to get into that in this assignment though. So you can go ahead and place all of the other beams for this plan. And the only thing really remaining for this plan is to place the beam designations as I have them here. Now I actually didn't dimension any grid lines in my final deliverable. If this were a real structural plan, we would end up showing many of the dimensions in here for the grid lines. For ours, we just have to get the beam designations in there. Now you can come in here and you can use, those are basically tags, and I could click tag and I could put this tag here, and there's a leader and a box and all these things I don't want. That's sort of the not easy way, I guess it's easy, but it's the individual way to place a tag. We can also go to annotate ribbon, and over here, where is it? Tag by category, which is what we were just doing with this button here on the quick access bar. And you could change this to be undo the leader so that we don't have a leader and we have a box. We don't actually even want the box. So what we're going to do is tag all. And this is going to save you a lot of time. This is a good button if you're doing doors, windows, all sorts of things that you want to tag a lot of things all at once. We're going to tag all. We're going to do all objects in current view. So we don't want to tag the whole project. We just want to do this particular view. And we are going to go to structural framing tags. And we're going to hit the check mark here. We can actually change the type here to standard. We do not want a leader, and we want tag orientation horizontal. That's fine. And we hit OK. And what that does is it automatically tags every single structural framing member that we have in this view, places it exactly where we want it, all in one fell swoop. It's that easy. So once you get the rest of this in, do that, finish your beams, and then place the tags. The only thing left to do now is create that structural perspective drawing. So what we're going to do is, I should have this renamed already. My default 3D view here, I'm going to call exterior perspective 1. And when I go and click the default 3D view, since I renamed this one, it's going to create a new default view. I can hide these by category. And I'm going to go to this orientation using my view cube, this little corner. I change my discipline to structural, and it hides almost everything I don't want to see. You are going to hide all the slabs and the roof except for the first floor slab. So hide in view by elements, and just hide in view all the elements until your view looks like mine. And that's all you got to do. So I'll hide in view by elements, the windows hide in view by category, just like our other structural view by category. The curtain wall I don't want to see, hide in view by category, and you'll eventually get a view similar to mine that only shows the structural framing elements. And that wraps up this week's assignment. Thank you.